Well, welcome to Decoding the Conflict Mindset. I'm Dr. Deborah Dupree, the Mindset Doc, and I am so excited to bring to you yet another fascinating speaker and topic. This is probably going to ring true for many, many people. We hear the word thrown around, bantered around a lot, but this person has really actually lived it. Ina Johnson Myers is a survivor of a narcissistic relationship. She's also the visionary author of Rising Above Narcissistic Abuse, where she has profiled 12 other women who have had narcissistic experiences as well. She's an international keynote speaker. We met in Paris and then in Rome, and a best-selling author. She's a certified life coach and the CEO of When She Rise. Ina also has a very interesting background in that she was a 24-year Army specialist, combat veteran, and who has since shared her story in many, many ways around narcissistic abuse. She advocates for women to better understand the difference between healthy and narcissistic love and the relationships that evolve. And she brings into some of her own Christian values as far as working through that relationship and finding a new way out. So with Ina today, we're going to be talking about narcissistic abuse, who tends to be mostly affected by it, how do you recognize it, what do you look for? And then also, she's going to share with us something that she's learned throughout this process that she wants others just like you to know about. So please stay tuned, don't go away. Ina Johnson will be here shortly. Well, as I promised, we have an exciting guest today on Decoding the Conflict Mindset. Again, I'm Dr. Deborah Dupree, the host and founder of Decoding the Conflict Mindset. Well, today we have a very exciting guest speaker as well as a very interesting topic. Rising above narcissistic abuse. I know I get asked a lot about that topic. There's certainly lots out in the literature on that topic. And today we have someone who firsthand knows about it, lived it, and lived through it to talk about it. So welcome, Ina Johnson Myers. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Deborah. How are you doing today?
Oh, great. Thank you. And I'm so delighted to have you. I've been looking forward to this episode for quite some time.
Thank you. So have I.
Yeah. Well, I want to just share a little tidbit then is that you and I, Ina, first met actually in Paris in early 2022 when we spoke at the STAR conference talking about positive psychology and well-being. And certainly your topic fits right into that. And then we ran into each other again in Rome just this last fall when we spoke at the same conference, but of course, a different group, different city. And so I was so delighted to run into you again and just said, I have to have you on my podcast.
And I was delighted that you asked. So
yeah.
I thank you so much for allowing me to be on your podcast.
Well, thank you. Yeah, especially when I heard you the second time, it's like, this is important stuff and we have to get it out there. So I'm going to launch right into where we want to go here. Again, rising above narcissistic abuse. We all have a story. And I'd like to have you share a little bit about why narcissistic abuse. How did you get there? What was going on in your life that drew you to this very serious and yet fascinating topic?
Right. The way I got there, actually, like most people, accidentally. Like most people, there is something, in your persona that draws them to you, whether you know it or not, until you learn it and fix whatever it is within you. My first experience with narcissistic abuse was actually before I went into the military. But I didn't, again, until I started doing my research and started understanding what narcissism was. I didn't know that that's what it was. I just thought it was just toxic and, why would somebody act like that? But I thought it was an isolated situation. And then when I went into the military, first of all, let me go back. I was raised by two World War II veterans that were in their 40s. So when growing up, I was taught different things by someone that's in their 40s than my peers who are being raised by 20-year-olds. So when I went into the military, I assumed, innocent little Ina thought that everyone had the same upbringing or same, shared the same values that I did. It wasn't until I went into the military that I realized a lot of people really didn't grow up with two parents, didn't grow up with love, didn't grow up with direction. And I end up becoming that person that wanted to show them, the good side of life, the love, and not understanding that no matter how much I try to show someone the love, the unconditional love, the whatever, if they're built or if their life was that toxicity, their life was the didn't understand love, didn't live by I guess live by standards of just having to survive, then my idea of love, it's nice, but it's not going to teach them what love is. That's something that they have to seek for themselves. But I always thought that my idea of love, I could help anybody overcome something, which allowed me or caused me to be in toxic relationships, because I'm constantly trying to be that loving person for someone that didn't really understand what love was.
Yeah.
And like I said, throughout my military career, I got into multiple, relationships like that, because thinking that my love can change someone else's toxicity. It wasn't until I got older that I realized that no matter how much I love someone, if they don't understand what love is, if they don't love themselves, then there's nothing that I can possibly give them that would help them understand love. So that's where I am now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ina, for sharing that, because your comments brought up several thoughts of mine, and I'll limit to one or two. The power of love is phenomenal, and it can go a long way. But as you said, you can't change somebody through that unless they are open to it. And
Right.
so the thing that I've experienced in my role and my experiences with clients throughout my career is that oftentimes people who come with the mindset that you have and the upbringing that you have simply don't believe it's real. They almost believe it's fake, and that you're just fooling with them, so to speak, because they simply don't know. And so oftentimes our adult behaviors show up in ways because we simply didn't learn anything different than our upbringing.
Right.
And so we don't know. And even if when we do get experiences in adult world, like you and myself did too, to realize not all families live this way, not all families function this way, that you begin to appreciate that, oh, I can make a difference here. I can change that trajectory of how I grew up. And until people are ready to hear that, they may not be open to it. So yeah. So I'm curious then for you, tell us a little bit more about when you started to notice that, okay, something's not right. You talked about a pattern of toxic relationships, and I think that has happened, has been true for a lot of us. But what was it that brought to your awareness, your attention, then that it's not just me, it's something where other people are coming from too.
Right. And it's different to get into that relationship when it's, just boyfriend and girlfriend. But when you get into that relationship and it becomes a marriage, that's where you really get to see, or you're living together or something like that. That's when you really get to see the toxicity. And you actually don't know what it is in the beginning. Something just is off, something isn't right, but you tend to excuse it away as in the beginning, I excuse it away as, just nervous energy. When you meet them, whoever that person is, male or female, when you meet them, you see or you hear the things that is drawing you to them. You hear the toxicity, but you oftentimes, like I did, excuse it away as nervous energy, or they just made a mistake, or and for a lot of people that may be true, but it's not until you get in a confined relationship, whether it's marriage or through pregnancy or something that restricts you with that person, that you start realizing that what you heard in the beginning, they actually meant and was actually true. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't, nervous energy. That was the way they live. And to them, the toxicity is normal. It's something that they grew up in. So it's not like, it just happened. With me, I have PTSD. PTSD came from my combat status. So I got the anxiety, I got all of that as an adult. For people that have narcissistic personality disorder or the traits, that's something that's from childhood. So they've grown up with that. So that's normal to them. So like I said, when I first started seeing it, I didn't know what it was. I excused it away. The things like I said, talking bad about you and then saying, I was just joking to people. The pulling away of affection, the pulling away, in the beginning of the relationship, they're chasing you because they want to be with you, you think they want to be with you. But as you become tied to that person, then they start pulling away, and then now you have to chase them. And so it becomes a rat race of you trying to chase them. And what I felt like that they were always throwing other women, other whatever in between us, so that I'd have to jump over, that other female, jump over that female to keep chasing them. And I just kept saying, okay, something's not right with it. Why would you say you love me if this is what I have to do? So it's just the circular conversations that you have. Even when you're dealing with someone, you're trying to, normal people or average people try to resolve conflicts, resolve things so that they can, get to have a better footing, get to a better place in their relationship. When you're dealing with someone toxic, your conversations are circular. You can talk for 5 hours.
Yeah.
And at the end of those 5 hours, you have not accomplished anything except for feeling bad about yourself, because now everything that happened is all your fault.
Yeah.
So it's like nothing. And after years of that, you have, like I said, years of it, because there's no resolution. There's no, trying to make things right. There's nothing. It's just constant circular conversations.
Yeah. And the other thing, as you said, you accomplish nothing. It gets confusing, and you're exhausted. You're just mentally and physically exhausted because it's draining. It's draining to deal with that intensity, that toxicity, and just you feel like you're going crazy because it gets so circular. It's like, wait a minute, I thought I just said that, or where, we've already been over that. Yeah.
And so many women, deal with that, and we don't understand what it is. We again, we're excusing it away. And we want, because for a lot of them, they're so charming. And so they draw you in with that charm, and it becomes an abuse, a cycle of abuse, neglect and charm, neglect and charm, and neglect and charm. So you're always waiting, when they abuse you or when they neglect you, you're always waiting for that charm part to come back, because you're thinking that the beginning of your relationship, where they were always so charming and attentive and, giving you things and the love that you thought was love, when they're always giving you all of that abundance, you're looking for that to come. So that's why it's so hard for people and victims to realize what it is that abuse, charm cycle. But those are the trauma bonds that keep people tied in that type of relationship, type of situations, because they're constantly waiting for that charm to come back, thinking that if they're nicer, if they do things better, if they dress better, if they put on more makeup, then that's going to bring that charm back.
Right.
But it's not going to bring it back.
Lose weight.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so you said a couple of things. So let's break it down a little bit for our viewers and listeners. I want a couple of examples. You sort of alluded to some, but I'd like to dive deeper into what are some actual 2 or 3 examples of what that abuse in a narcissistic relationship looks like. So that's one, okay? And that sort of ties into how does it show up. But then too, as I'd like to then dive a little bit deep, because you talked about the charm and so forth, and who tends to be most affected by narcissistic abuse. And so let's go back to what are 2 or 3 examples so people can relate to this, because they might be in that relationship and not even know it.
Mm-hmm. An example, like I said, of the abuse when you're dealing with the circular conversations. Mm-hmm. When 2 people are in a relationship that is trying to grow, that's in a loving relationship, circular conversation isn't a part of it because they want to resolve issues. Mm-hmm. Narcissistic people don't want to resolve. They want you to just be quiet and go away. So that's why the circular conversations happen. They'll, if you bring up something that's extremely valid, they'll bring up something that you may have said or done 15 years ago to hurt their feelings. So that's why what happened today, isn't happening, or that's one of the things. When you're talking about your future, when you try to talk about a future with someone that can't see a future, it's like playing catch with a dog. They will throw the ball out about this great picture of what life could be with you or with them. And then while they're, abusing you, like I said, physically, because sometimes the abuse is physical, but most often it's emotional and mm-hmm. mental, because mm-hmm. those are the bruises that people don't see. Yeah. When they treat you like you don't exist. I've been in a situation where I've heard someone tell a story that I was clearly at that place where the story happened, but the way they told the story, they totally erased me out of the story. Oh. And a lot of times you're thinking, was I there?
Yeah, yeah.
But they erase you from situations. So you're constantly feeling, having to chase them and feel like you're they're deserving of your love, or, and it's just when as victims, it's not in the beginning, it's not a lot of stuff that you can actually pinpoint. You can't verbalize it because you don't know the vocabulary, but mm-hmm. you know how you feel. You mm-hmm. know that if you're in a room with someone, or you're with someone for weeks at a time, and you still feel extremely lonely, because you can be in a room with them and they act like you don't exist. You can spend, like I said, go on vacation, and they'll spend that vacation paying attention to everybody else and allowing you to, if you would be better, then I'd give you this attention. Mm. If you would lose weight, I'll give you this attention. And so it's a matter of just how it makes you feel. Relationships make you feel. Relationships should not make you feel less than, should not make you feel lonely, should mm-hmm. not make you, you shouldn't be confused being with someone that you love. If you're confused being with someone that you love, they're doing that intentionally. So that's some of the things. There's so many different aspects of the abuse. Mm-hmm. Like I said, it's sexually, making you chase them, sexually, or angry sex, mm-hmm. that type of situation, taking out the aggressions on you, dominating you, and trying to dominate anything that you say to cause fear. Mm-hmm. Someone that loves you does not want to see you in fear. They don't need to crush you in order to make themselves look bigger. But when you're dealing with someone that has that toxicity, they have to be the smartest person in the room. They have to be the only one that is seen in the room. They have to be validated by every person that passes them.
Yeah.
And no matter how much time and energy and effort you give to that person, you're exhausted. Yeah. Because you cannot fill that empty hole. It's constantly sucking the air out of you, sucking your breath, sucking your spirit out of you. That's when you know that, like I said, something is not right.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are excellent examples. I one thing that in my own reading, I think this was prompted from our last visit in Rome earlier this year, was, who tends to be most affected. And one thing that I've read about is that, the person who has that narcissistic tendency tends to look for sort of that, and I'm going to, draw on the male-female dynamics. I'll let you talk about, the gender distribution of that, that trait. But, the narcissistic tends to look for that damsel or, in distress. And I'm here to save you and be the knight in white shining armor kind of thing. And when you're feeling most vulnerable, and then we'll use that to build on control.
Right.
Is that consistent with your findings?
Yes. And not just when you're most vulnerable, also when you're nonchalant, you get along. When you just want to get along. You just want to please, people pleasers.
Yeah.
And there's a special, I say a special type of person that they have to have. Like I said, very empathetic, very willing to please. And all of those are great qualities to have.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to find out why, as a woman, for me, why I wanted to do that. And like I said, for me, I started seeing that throughout the military, that when I would stand up for myself, being in a male-dominated environment, then I would be ostracized. And so now I have to, make up with the person that actually abused me in order to get along at work or to get rank so that became a pattern for me to have to, say, okay, I'm sorry, even when I didn't do anything wrong. I apologize for, wanting to be treated well. And that became a pattern for me.
Yeah. Okay.
And I realized it or discovered it when I started going to therapy after I retired. And I would talk to her about something that was going on, and I'd call it an incident. She said, "That's not an incident, that's a sexual assault." And so I didn't even think, when she said that went over my head. So I kept telling her things. She said, "No, that's not an incident. That's a sexual assault."
Mm-hmm.
And I learned or discovered about myself was that I allowed stuff to happen because I didn't want to be ostracized in a male-dominated world. I didn't want to be, be on the outside, and I couldn't make rank. I couldn't, be part of the group. I couldn't, at work, my co-workers now, I'm like, was that I'm not volatile, but they don't want to be around me because I'm that person that, wants my rights. I want you to respect my space. So now I can't be around you. So as, again, many women, we do that so that we can get along. And that's when those are the relation or the traits that they need in relationships, in friendships. And it's not just, like I said, relationships, it's friendships, it's at school, it's at work, it's in your churches. All of those, you have all those relationships that are full of narcissistic people, and they draw to you because of your willingness to overlook situations, your willingness to excuse away, your willingness, to, no matter what they do and say, you're going to find the good in it. And again, for regular people, that's fine. But when your good traits are used against you, that's the problem.
Yeah. When they're abused, when they're taken advantage of. Yeah. And so I guess, if there's one thing that you wish you would have known in the beginning, based on what you know now, what is that one gem that you can share with our viewers here that could maybe put them on the lookout, or, maybe, guide them or redirect them from a narcissistic abusive relationship?
When someone has to make you feel uncomfortable in order to be in their presence, they're testing your boundaries. So have solid boundaries. And when someone does test your boundaries, let them know and make them firm. And again, with narcissistic people, when they find out you have a boundary, that's their life's journey now to break it. So if you're solid with your boundaries,
Mhm.
actually, eventually they'll end up start disliking you because they can't break your boundaries and they'll go away. But again, that means you haven't been a victim of that type of abuse. So having solid boundaries, understanding what boundaries are, first of all, because growing up, I didn't have boundaries because I didn't need any boundaries. People weren't trying to abuse me.
Yeah.
It wasn't until recently, in the past few years, and I'm almost 60, that I had to realize what boundaries were and put them firmly in place. And those that can't abide by the boundaries, then you don't need to be in my space.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's so very true. So I'm curious because I know that you're working on a very important book, and tell us a little bit about the book. And listeners and viewers, pay attention because we're going to have something else following up on this little interview, and so do listen and please tell us. I know what that looks like.
Yes, the book is Rising Above Narcissistic Abuse, and it's the navigational journey to freedom. So it's 12 women sharing their stories from pain to purpose, from devastation to triumphs, giving victims a voice, giving them the strategies to walk out that journey. It takes a lot to accept, first of all, that you're in the situation that you're in, because a lot of people they're like, well, I have my own job, I have this, I have that, how can I be in that situation? That's why you're in that situation. People that are toxic, they don't want to work for their own, they want to work for yours. So they'll look, and I explain this, when you find someone that's too good to be true, be very mindful and cognizant of that person, especially if they're moving in 2 to 3 weeks after you all have met, or you're falling in love, you're so in love 2 to 3 weeks after you've met. You are more than likely a target of narcissistic abuse because they have to move quickly. They have to, overwhelm you with all this love and affection and all of this fake stuff that you don't realize is fake. You think it's real because they're so charming. And once they have you in a vulnerable situation, whether, like I said, living together or marriage or pregnancy or something like that, that's when that other side comes in. So this book is about the journey of 12 women sharing their stories, giving victims the vocabulary of being able to say what it is, because we didn't have that vocabulary. So that's our goal, to give people the vocabulary to understand what it is that you're going through, that you're not crazy. Oftentimes we think we're the ones that are crazy. No, you're not crazy. You heard what you heard, and you saw what you saw, and you feel what you feel. And that's actually your body's GPS system, your security system telling you something's not right.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we turn it off. But these are 12 women that are putting it on paper, putting their pain, their devastation on paper, so that women around the globe can read this and understand. You may not, my story may affect, these amount of people. But when you're talking about 12 women, this is just the first volume, 12 women that are sharing their stories, readers are going to find something that are going through those situations. They're going to find something in that that can help them. So that's our goal, to help generations and nations.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so a couple clarifying questions here then is the book still in progress? Is it published? Is it soon to be published?
May 11th.
May 11th. Okay, very good.
Yes.
We heard it here first, May 11th. And and where can people get a copy?
Amazon. Amazon, yes.
Okay. And they can also learn more at your website, because you have a website actually called risingabovenarcissisticabuse.com, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they can also go there to meet the authors. So yes, they'll be able to go there to book interviews, to buy the book, also, and meet the authors. So we want to make that website just an all-encompassing site for anyone, for the resources that anyone needs for their journey.
That's great. That's great. Well, I know I'll certainly be sharing it with a number of people that I work with, both on the, professional coaching level, as well as some of my one-on-one work that I still do. One more question, because you've given some great examples of what narcissistic abuse looks like, and some of the patterns of behavior that tend to show up. We talked a little bit about, who seems to be most impacted, but and I asked you, what was one thing you wish you know now that you wish you did back then? So the last question I have for you is that if somebody, as they listen to this, for example, or read your book, if somebody realizes, oh, I think I might be in that kind of relationship, and now that I'm hearing examples or signs of what that looks like, what do I do? How do I get out of it? So what's your suggestion, Ina?
I suggest that you, first of all, find a counselor, a coach, someone that understands narcissistic abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Not all counselors, not all, church leaders understand narcissistic abuse. Some may even say they do, but if they've never been in that situation, if they haven't had the specialty, certification, if they haven't gone specifically for trauma,
Mm-hmm.
they really may not, which may cause more trauma to victims.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, get therapy, because you need to have an outlet to have those conversations, because what you feel is valid.
Mm-hmm.
Many times people that don't understand about narcissistic abuse, they try to make you also feel that what you're feeling is not valid.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's important to have a trauma therapist, a trauma coach, a trauma. But also just connect with, there are trauma groups. Connect with someone. Don't stand on that island. The best weapon the narcissist has is that they keep you on an island. They keep you away from people. They weaponize your surroundings, your family, your friends, so that when you do decide, or when you do realize that something's not right, you can't run to anybody, because they all think he's so great or she's so great. So they weaponize everybody around you. Get into a group of women, trauma women, that you can speak your truth with and talk to, and they can, help move you through your journey. It's really important to get that done.
Okay, so I heard three things then. It was one, seek, professional behavioral health, counseling.
Yes.
With somebody
Trauma.
with somebody who's experienced dealing with trauma, and also within that too, that narcissistic abuse pattern. Two, that there are groups available where you can talk with like experienced people, so that you can legitimatize in a way your experiences, validate that yes, these are real, these are mine. And then thirdly is simply taking action. Don't stay stuck.
Right. And also a lot of times as victims, they verbalize what they're doing to the narcissistic person. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Once you realize what it is that you're dealing with, keep it to yourself and deal with it. Otherwise, the trauma, the abuse will get worse if you explain to them what you know. Yeah. A lot of times as victims, we want to, because again, we're still trying to help. So we go and tell them all the things that we know. Telling them that will just abuse you or cause more trauma and abuse. So, yeah.
I hear that. I hear that. So don't stay alone. That's the thing. Don't let your isolation become even greater. So there are people out there. Listen and learn. Pass on this podcast, for example, too. So Ina, how can people reach you directly?
You can reach me by, first of all, going to risingabovenarcissisticabuse.com. You can email me, info@whensherise.com. You can look me up on social media. All my social media handles are When She Rise 1. When She Rise 1. You can find me on all social platforms.
Okay. So info@whensherise.com.
Correct.
And then on social media, it's When She Rise 1.
Number 1.
Okay. And connect and follow and learn more, because yes, it's more prevalent than what we thought. And thank you so much, Ina, for being on. Again, I know from your presentation in Rome and in Paris. You are packed full of knowledge and have all kinds of information and resources and experience to share. And so thank you for sharing your message. Thank you for spreading the word. And I look forward to supporting you and taking your message worldwide.
Thank you, Dr. Deborah. You're amazing.
Well, thank you. Again, Ina Johnson-Myers, thank you so much. And watch for her book, May 11. And we'll certainly be promoting that further. And also, subscribe to DCM Podcast, because then you'll get notified about what our next event coming forward is going to be with these 12 amazing women who had the courage to step forward and do something different. Thank you again, Dr. Deborah Dupree, the Mindset Doc, decoding the conflict mindset. Well, I hope you gained a great deal from what Ina Johnson-Myers had to say around narcissistic abuse. That's definitely a podcast to forward on and share with others who may be impacted by that kind of relationship. Coming up next is also another certified life coach, Yorona Boster. And again, like Ina, I met Yorona more recently in New York City when we both appeared for the Star Conference Women's Wellness and had a chance to share with each other our respective topics. So Yorona comes to us with an extensive background dealing with parenting, loss, trauma, and infertility. She is an advanced certified life coach, and she's also a certified speaker coach and an acclaimed TEDx speaker herself. In addition to her parenting podcast called The Evolution of Parenting, she also is releasing a book called Unspoken Signals. It should be ready in the fall or winter of 2024. And as the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, she brings in some unique perspectives about acute loss, multiple traumas, and how it can affect how we show up and how we parent. So mark your calendars for 2 weeks and come on back and join us at Decoding the Conflict Mindset with Yorona Boster, talking about parenting and unspoken signals.